Okay, we are live. Welcome everybody to the Diagnostic Working Group meeting. Before get started, does anybody have any announcement? I don't think so. Okay, so let's jump to the first issue in the agenda. I will share the minutes right here. Is the alternative to LL node. So I think this is the reason that Anton joined it today. So
yeah, hold on a second. Let me just pull up the bits and pieces. Yeah, the agenda. Right. Okay. Yeah. So basically, this is an item that Kavalki's raised in terms of, do we want to investigate using some different internals, debug helper fundamentally within V8 in order to generate or understand what the contents of a core dump are. Okay, I think given where we are with maintaining compatibility with the internals of V8, I think it makes a lot of sense to investigate it. I haven't even had a chance to look at the documentation that's already been provided, so I have no opinion on it. But sort of there was sentiment within the original post was, oh, it seems like we're going to continue with LL node, so there's no point in investigating this. And I don't quite see it that way. I think if we have something that's going to be more maintainable, that more people can collaborate on, I think that's a very worthwhile worthwhile thing to investigate. So what I put in the issue was that I'd have a read and then circle back and think about how we can potentially stand this up. I know there's precedence in Node for standing up side projects. Thinking about Udici and a number of other things where they start off as experimental and sort of as they mature, we migrate towards them. I just don't know how, given the limited number of folks we currently have in sort of the post-mortem area, how achievable that's going to be. But I think at least technically validate it. I think that's the next step, or have a conversation around it. What did it look like technically? What needs to be done, etc., etc. So that's my plan with it. So I was hoping, I was hoping that folks who are interested in post-mortem more would be able to join this call. But if not, then I'll set something specific. There was a post-mortem working group back in the day. I think I'll set something up specifically just to dive into sort of the detail of that. If folks can't make this general diagnostics call, it might make sense just to kick it off as a specific post-mortem call. But yeah, the 4 people on the issue that have expressed an interest in it, yeah, get them on and take it from there. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds reasonable to me. I mean, I think that would be great to have an issue showing the next steps of the LL node for the folks who is willing to contribute. And also, I think that it's worth it to mention it in every diagnostic working group meeting, just to keep tracking of this, to not let this issue in the limbo, you know. So actually, honestly, I'm interested to help on this, but nowadays I don't have bandwidth to deal with the current task list. So if we have just a tracking, and it would be awesome to work on that whenever I have time or other folk have time as well. I believe Stephen also is interested in helping on that, right?
Yeah, I'm interested in trying to contribute to LL nodes as much as I can. Yeah, I don't have a huge amount of free time, but I do somewhat depend on that tool for my work. So having it functional is certainly a goal for me.
Okay. Great. So I assume next meeting we will have potentially we'll have the issue with the tracks, or potential next.
Yeah. So is that how you want me to do it? Raise an issue in diagnostics LL node tracker, And it's kind of what I started. Was it the issue 5571? I think it was the 571, wasn't it? I started just put
Yes.
some like tracking notes in there. I think, yeah. So I'll move that out into a separate issue, and yeah, well, let's have that as a tracker, because there's, of course, as well as the sort of the elephant in the room, which is sort of the getting 16 compatible. And there's other pieces like the CI, like LLVM, ABI compatibility, blah blah blah, that needs to be monitored, and there's other pieces as well that need to be that we need to give updates on. So yeah.
Great.
And the roadmap again around whether we want to use debug helper or whatever we do. So yes, I'll open up an issue and I'll take a note even that's what I'm going to do. That's how crazy this is getting.
Yeah, mainly the stuff that's like I personally want to know is like what's the state of the world now, and what are like the ongoing maintenance tasks going to be. Like I know there's like the like changes between major versions. Like it would be nice to have like a process in mind of like, oh yeah, like when this new major comes out, you should look at like these particular places to figure out what needs to change. I don't know what those particular places are, or if there's any particular places, or how any of that works currently.
Yeah, so a few years back, I'm going to say between 10, 12, 14 versions of Node. I'm going to definitely say between 10 and 12. The core folks used to emanate what was changing V8 to the different projects, and we get the heads up from core that these changes are coming down, therefore it's going to impact these types of things, and then they'd be picked up and worked on, etc., etc. So that's historically how it's worked, but I don't know if that's still in place. I'd have to chase a lot there in terms of that structure, but I'll take a note to how do we actually find out where the breaking changes are coming from, etc., etc. So,
Yeah. I'm relatively involved in V8 stuff external to Node, so it would make sense for me to get more involved in that if there's like a channel for that to happen.
Yeah. So I'll find out because it definitely did happen. I was going through some of the previous issues again to try and track down what types of changes. It's exactly the question you asked, actually. So yeah, I'll find out who was on those and what groups they were in, and yeah, put some shape on that as well. Okay.
Great. The next one in the agenda is reevaluate eBPF tracing tool list. Basically, this one I'm still investigating. Yesterday, I did a quick look and to see how can we include USD probes to the Node.js core. Currently, we have a static trace for HTTP, as far as I remember. And I'm very interested in improving that support to other areas of Node.js. I really believe that is the future of monitoring Node.js without overhead, at least. Usually, most of the tracers, most of the monitoring in Node.js add at least 20% of overhead on top of the application. So I believe if you have it in a eBPF, in a kernel, in the kernel side, I believe it will be way less. So it's investigating.
Yeah, so I did a presentation to the Diagnostics group about 18 months ago, 2 years ago, suggesting so that the minimum that you would require, or that's required, is for the USDT probes to be enabled in the Linux builds. Okay, so Mary went away and she did on the unofficial repo that Rod was managing, she did actually put together an unofficial build of that, but we never got that into core, into the core release, or the official build is the phrase I'm looking for. Apologies, right? And the challenge is that it's a kind of it's a chicken and egg situation. Okay, so, and the reason why is because fundamentally 90% of the users of Node.js are software developers. They're not operations people. And we have done nothing to socialize the potential eBPF capabilities to the operations folks within any sort of commercial organization or any of the vendors as well. We did chat with some of the folks in Red Hat to try and kick something off, but very, very slow moving, because the maturity of eBPF, I agree with you completely. It is where we're going to finish up in terms of monitoring application stacks in Linux. It's just not quite there yet. So I think it would be retrograde to remove those USDTs right now, because I think in 18 months' time we'll be trying to put them back in. That's my opinion on it, and always has been. And I know James has, rightfully so, does not want unused code in the code base. But I think there's still Joint and not Joint now, but the SmartOS folks have agreed that they'll start putting commits in. I think Ben raised an issue about getting rid of or downgrading the Illumos support. Those folks have come back, so if they have, then they could carry the USDTs that are already in there for HTTP and TCP, and we could work with them to build out for the event loop then, and other interesting things like that, because I think they're really, really good use cases.
Yeah, exactly. That's the point that I would raise actually, is I think that a good step would be, even knowing that it will be a long discussion in the core, I would like to open just a draft PR just to see, just to show how it gonna look like, and also what is the next steps for that. And after I have a draft PR, I will try to convince the team that it is very helpful for anyone, and like building tools on top of eBPF. For instance, I believe that Node Clinic could use eBPF as a flag to track monitoring stuff, and I think that it shows a good usage of it. But yeah, I think the problem of it is, as you mentioned, 90% of the users developers, and most of them doesn't use Linux. And yeah, I would say not most of them, but yeah, at least 0.5% doesn't use Linux.
Yeah, and even a smaller set of them are actually responsible for running it in production. Like they're not the audience for it in most scenarios. Like that's yeah, I know, because I spend my time working with in IBM. We're working with customers, and I don't spend my time working with Node.js developers. I spend my time working with the ops people who are putting Node in production, and their house is on fire. So yeah, yeah, okay.
The next one is the issue 532, reassess the tooling list and the maturity status. This is just the tracking issue. We did all the work, I guess. The remaining issue is the eBPF one that I would like to keep open for a while. So I assume that we can close it because most of the support list was already addressed. So that's it. I'll move to the next one. I will show to close. I will actually mention to close in the issue and see if someone appears, but I don't see that we will have any objections. The next one is the user tracking documentations. This is just a feedback. We have this issue open for a while. The idea is to migrate the available tutorials to the Node.js org. The memory one was already migrated, so this is a good step, and I believe that we can keep moving. Just one thing that I would like to mention is that the profiling we have, actually in the memory, we have a mention to Valgrind, but I did a test recently, and I'm not sure if this is working as expected, at least not in the official build. So I don't think that we need to mention, or we can mention it in the documentation at least.
Okay.
Okay.
I notice in that list there's the node report and the LL node and LLDB aren't checked off. There's no documentation on them.
Yeah, we don't have a tutorial for that yet.
Yeah,
So
okay.
that
I'm going
would
to
be
take a
awesome.
note of that as well. That's something that needs to go on the list of things that we're doing. Yeah. Okay.
Great. Amazing. I think that's it. The next one is the report version. Semantics is not defined. I don't know about this issue, honestly. Let me see. Okay, Girish added it to agenda again, but I don't have context for that. So I tend to skip it to the next meeting. Yeah, looks reasonable to keep it to the next meeting until Girish is available to join.
Yeah.
That's it.
Okay.
That's it. I will rewatch the minutes and update the minutes, but sounds good. A lot of very good improvement in the LL node part. I was missing that. And that's it.
Yeah, cool. Okay, so we've got that should be fairly easy to do because we've got tutorials on IBM Cloud on IBM's documentation about using LL Node when we were supporting it a few years back. So it should be just a lift and shift for that. Just on the eBPF, you mentioned you're going to open a PR and have a conversation around it. Are you going to do something similar to what we're doing with LL Node, which is having a tracking issue for it, or are you just going to track it in that issue? Yeah.
Yeah, probably I will open a new fresh issue for that.
Yeah.
But honestly, it will take a while because I still need to figure out how it will work.
Yeah, I know. I'm not expecting it. Like I
Yeah.
say, I had the conversation 2 years ago, so I'm not expecting anything tomorrow. But it's something I pushed for, and I'd like to give it support as well, which is why I'm looking for the tracking. Yeah, but I know it's going to be a long time.
Yeah, so soon as I get any kind of feedback, any kind of insight, I contact you through the GitHub or OpenJS Slack.
Cool. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, as a general, I'll join the OpenJS Slack actually. Yes. Okay. Fair enough.
Okay. Okay. Thank you everybody for joining.
Awesome.
See you in the next